giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Art of Selling Travel Podcast. This episode, we're actually going to talk about two topics we've kind of talked about in the past a little bit. First one being Black Friday. We recorded an episode last year, but it came out after Black Friday, kind of as a follow-up to something that had happened to another advisor within our Facebook community. And so I wanted to make sure that we were preemptive with it this year, but also to the election. And so I also released an episode a couple of weeks ago about selling in uncertainty, and the election is going to cause that. So this is kind of a little bit of a 2-for-1 episode, yet in some ways, they both kind of lead one into the other. So let's talk about the election. No, we're not talking politics, but I just want to talk a little bit again, because I'm starting to see in Facebook groups, travel advisors saying, my clients are saying, I want to wait until after the election. And that's a valid response, because anytime we come into an election, no matter where you are in the world, it creates that pattern of uncertainty. I will link up that other episode so that if you haven't listened to it, you can go back and listen to it as well. But some of the things that I'm going to talk about with Black Friday, you could actually use a couple of those same tactics in order to help create a little bit more certainty for your clients in terms of the election. But I just want to kind of reaffirm for those that are struggling with this, with their clients saying, I don't want to book anything till after the election. It's important to remember these are major financial purchases that your clients are making. Travel is ranked in the top 5 expenditures that people are going to spend their money on throughout the course of their life. And so things like elections do have financial ramifications. Now, sometimes it's a perceived ramification. Sometimes it's actually going to have an impact. I am not American. I am not wading into American politics. Although when it's Canadian, I'm not going to wade into the Canadian either, because that's not what you came here for. What you are here for is to understand where your clients are coming from. So anytime you do have an election, there is going to be uncertainty with the stock market. And some of your clients, particularly in the luxury market and other such, they're traveling using the dividends from their stock accounts. Perhaps you're working with clients who are a little bit more on the budget side of it, which means any impact to interest rates and therefore their home mortgage, their lines of credit, all of those sorts of things can and will be impacted by the government that's in place, or not so much even the government that's in place, because I know sometimes that can make it sound like, oh, it's got to be this one, or it's got to be that one, or that one's the boogeyman, or that one's the boogeyman. That's not it. It's the uncertainty of what policies might create. It's the uncertainty of when decisions are made. And we're not going to know what that actually looks like until the government has been formed, put into place, and their policies are actually put into place. We are going to see, spikes and drops and dips and trips and other such with the different stock markets and whatnot, because in some ways they're hedging their bets. This is in some ways a game of gambling, and they don't know what it's going to be. The difference between the stock market and the Las Vegas odds makers is that it's by option that you are a part of the Las Vegas gambling scene. The stock market, as much as so many people will say, oh, but I don't have stocks. No, but perhaps the employers do. Perhaps the business itself is part of that. So there can be a lot of things that come into effect that can, like I said, create that uncertainty. There's a lot of companies where their pensions are tied up within the stock market. And so we just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for, as a consumer, I'm speaking on behalf of a consumer right now, that we just have that little bit of certainty, because we want to be able to travel over and over and over again. And so sometimes it's just taking that beat to wait a moment. Now, that being said, Is the sky going to fall the day after an election? In a free country, a democratic country, no, that should not happen. Can I promise that? No, I can't, because the world has taught us the world is a different place lately. But as a whole, going on past history, business will operate just like it was once the new government has been announced. So I would not pressure your clients, but I would ask them if they're saying, I need to wait till after the election, just say, not a problem. Would you mind if I ask what it is that you're waiting to hear? Because sometimes they've just been told that you got to wait. Just wait till after the election. Just wait till after this. Just wait till after Black Friday. Just wait for Black Friday. Wait for Cyber Monday. Wait for Travel Tuesday, whatever it is. And so sometimes when we ask them why, it shifts the conversation. So, in respect to shifting the conversation, we're going to chat a little bit about Black Friday, and then I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can tie both of these conversations in. So, Black Friday. Okay, let's talk about what is Black Friday. Black Friday is this thing that's been created by retailers to offload inventory that they haven't yet been able to sell. And there's a term called loss leader. So if you are in retail, if you're in business, you've probably heard the term loss leader. Now, we don't hear about it so much in the travel space, but yet there is a thing called a loss leader. So a loss leader is, in terms of a brick and mortar store, what is the thing that you're willing to sell at a loss in order to get people to come in the door? Because you have the statistics to prove that if they come in the door and if they get in there and buy this item, the likelihood of them buying all of these other items is significantly higher. In fact, I had somebody that worked for me at one point, and they were telling me they used to work in an electronics store. And the really fancy power bars, I have a handful of them, the big surge protectors, like these are like the Mac Daddy ones. They retailed for $130 some a piece. He was able to get them for me for less than $25. Why? Because the markup on them was so big that they were how they started to offset some of the other promotions that were in their store. They would sell things like a TV at a loss, as crazy as it sounds. They would sell the TV at a loss because then they would upsell you for the surge protector. They would upsell you the warranty. They would upsell you all of these other things that if you got a TV at a smoking deal, statistically proven, you were more likely to buy all of these other things that you wouldn't have bought if you bought the TV at full price. And yet when they added up all of these other items, they were able to make more money off of those than they were off of the TV itself. So when it came to Black Friday and when it comes to retail, we're talking about things that are working as a loss leader. We're also talking about last year's inventory. So a lot of times, like you'll see the end of the season, especially on clothing, it's end of the season. So when you get into like, what is it, July and August, they're blowing out the summer stock because they're getting ready to start bringing in the winter stock. I assume it's like that in the warmer parts of the world where you kind of have the same season all year round. But up where I am, we have very different seasons, very different clothing requirements, depending on the time of year. And so that's why in January, you're going to see them blowing out the winter and already starting to bring in the shorts and tank tops and other such, even though it's still minus 40 out. So then when you get into later in the season, you're like, there's nothing here. But anyhow, that's another conversation. But what Black Friday is it was a way to drive people into stores to spend. It was a way to create this fear of missing out so that people would overspend because hello, you went and the deal was going to be so good that you went to the store and got in line at 11 o'clock at night. So that when it turned midnight, you were able to shop at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, how crazy. When you're willing to do things like that, I promise you, you're willing to buy things that were not on your list. Since then, it has now spiraled into this entire marketing shtick, if you will, because now you will see people who save up all year because they're going to go shop on Black Friday and they don't even know how much things normally retail for. And so, whether it's Black Friday and it's selling off the unwanted inventory, or it's a Travel Tuesday, which, you know, going back many years, again, this is, 20 years of selling travel. When we used to get the flyers in by the fax machine, Tuesdays traditionally were always a good deal day. We almost always got a really, really good promotion Tuesday mornings come through the fax machine that was waiting there for us. Now, obviously, a Tuesday following Black Friday is a Travel Tuesday. And traditionally, yes, there were some deals to be had. Were they significantly different than what they had been the Tuesday before, or the Tuesday before that, or the Tuesday before that? Not really. And yet there were some influencers who were like, "Hey, look at us. We found deals because we're so smart." And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. In so many ways, it's almost this clickbait. And now it's become a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you will see so much travel is sold on this day. Well, that's because it's almost like this clickbait thing. If you look at the overall, not at that excess inventory of the mass market that has way too much inventory to begin with, but of things that are a little bit more specific, a little bit more higher category, your ocean fronts, your balconies, your suites, whether you're talking land or ocean or whatever it is, those don't usually hit the Travel Tuesday deals. Why? Because they're not part of the excess inventory. Those have already been sold. Those are already going to claim a premium. Now, I actually saw somebody put out not too long ago a post and just saying, like, 80% off. Well, 80% off of what? Here's the thing. When your clients are hearing you talk about it because your suppliers are talking about it, or they see the suppliers themselves talking about it, they're like 80% off or 75% off. To a client, they think it's off of what the price is today. So when you're going to start to see things. It's going to be buy one, get 75% off. Buy one, get one free. Get 80% off. Whatever it is. If you start talking about that, your clients are going to look at what the price are today and they're like, "Oh my goodness, it's only $1,000, 80% off. Like, I can go for $200. That's incredible. Okay, I'm definitely waiting for Black Friday." Sorry, no, that's not how it works. See, it's $1,000 today, but in reality, the quote unquote rack rate or published rate is actually $4,000 or $5,000. Or $5,000. So for you to get your 80% off, it's still $1,000. It's still going to be that much, or worse. It's 80% off of one passenger, not the other. And so you actually end up having to spend more. And then you're going to lose these promos. See, last year, the reason why I recorded the video is because we had an advisor who reached out that said, my clients were all ready to book a suite. And I told them to wait for Black Friday because I gotten the flyer from the supplier that said they were going to have all of these amazing deals. And then when it came out, the price had inflated. The price had gone up so much that even when we factored in all of the things that they were going to get, the client still had to pay more than had they booked the week prior. And so what do? So we had conversations on that, book them a refundable rate if possible, and then watch for another week or two down the road to see if that price comes back down. 2, let them know it's not going to, like, as soon as they book, it can't go up anymore, at least. Obviously, you want to check your terms and conditions. There's fuel surcharges and whatnot. So make sure that you've got the right wording with that, depending on the type of travel that you're booking for them. But overall, the actual fare, if you will, can't increase. But we want to make sure that we're having the conversations that are right for our clients. Because again, even if maybe the full price was only 4,000, so yeah, 80% off. I'm doing some quick math in my head. It's not working. Let's say it's like $800 or something like that to get the 80% off. But those clients wanted to book a suite. So maybe their rate was 1,500. Now it's all gone back up. So now it's $4,000. Well, they don't get the 80% off because it didn't qualify as part of the promo, which means that they're now having to spend thousands more. So how do you get around that? One, don't wait for Black Friday. Start proactively reaching out to your clients today. Start having the conversation, because after all, when that sort of situation happens, who's going to get blamed? It's not going to be the suppliers. It's going to be you. So start reaching out to your clients. Start having the conversations. Start saying, if you're planning to wait till Black Friday, we need to have a conversation today. And the way that you can position that is to say things such as, in order to get the most out of Black Friday, we need to have our consultation now so that I can get that taken care of for you now, so that we're not trying to play catch up and other such when Black Friday comes. I've already got my list and I'm ready to go. That way you can do a consultation without that immediate time constraint and pressure. Now, here's the other thing. When you're doing that consultation, you can have a look at it. If they are asking for premium quality suites, if they are looking at a premium quality product, if they are looking at something that has a relatively low supply and a decent demand, if they're looking for specific travel dates that might otherwise have hit the blackout of Black Friday, those are all things you want to bring to their attention as being something that's possibly not going to be part of Black Friday. So how do you get ahead of it? Like I said, you reach out, you explain the clickbait factor of Black Friday and offer to guide them. You get those peak season clients booked now, like yesterday. You need to get them booked. And don't join the noise. Don't join the noise. Wait and then communicate when everybody else is like, Black Friday, Black Friday, Black Friday, Black Friday, Black Friday, because nobody is going to hear you. And then what ends up happening? You, congratulations, get to join the list of how do you compete on price. We never, ever, ever want to be in a position we have to compete on price, because that's how we lose every single time. Great. You might save this one booking. But when you train a client to compete on price, you're only the lowest till you're the lowest, which, by the way, there will always be somebody cheaper. You don't want to be in a position that you are competing on price. You don't want to be in a position where you are competing on time constraints, where you are competing on just, you don't want to be competing in the bottom of the barrel. Now, I'm not saying you don't want to work with budget clients. Budget clients deserve professional expertise and assistance, possibly even more so than a luxury client. Why? Because that money might mean even more to them than the tens of thousands a luxury client's going to spend. So I'm not saying anything against a budget client, but what I am saying is that we want to make sure that they understand the differences as well. We want to make sure that they understand that not everything is about price. The quality of their experience could be dramatically different with as little as $100 a week difference. So it's making sure that you have the conversations, that you're getting them going, especially if you're not in a mass market audience. If you are not in a mass market product, you want to make sure that they're understanding that Black Friday and mass market go hand in hand. But Black Friday and premium, Black Friday and niched, Black Friday and very specific, they're not friends. They might talk about Black Friday, but the reality of something being in there that's going to help, Very little. So now I said we would talk about how can you link the election and Black Friday. Well, there's a couple of tricks. Ah, man, I hate that term, especially when I just said election. Okay. And I don't like the word tactic in this case. Wow, elections can make everything feel icky, can't they? Okay. So here is what I would do if I was in your position, be it an election objection, be it a Black Friday objection. Look to see what it is that they're wanting to book. Then you're going to ask a couple of questions. One, are you okay if the price goes up on Black Friday? And a lot of them will be like, what are you talking about? Of course it's not going to go up. Well, in reality, it quite often does. That's what happens with Prime Day. There's actually a huge FTC lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken, taking place with Amazon right now because they used to inflate the prices leading up to Prime Day just so that they could pull it back down again. Travel tends to increase their prices on like the day before Black Friday just so they can pull them back down. But they quite often don't pull them back down to what they are around the 10th of November. The same is true for the election. Are you okay if the price goes up? What is it specifically that's keeping you from wanting to proceed right now? Because again, you have to remember, especially whether it's an election or something else, often it's a fear that's holding them from moving forward. But then what you also want to do is look at what are your opportunities. Is there an opportunity to book a refundable rate? Now, traditionally, in the normal world, outside of an election, outside of Black Friday, outside of those sorts of constraints, am I a big fan of talking about refundable rates that you can cancel, rebook, change, et cetera, et cetera? No. But these are very specific circumstances. This is your opportunity to potentially look like a rock star and or be a rock star. Okay. So if we're talking about the election, if we're talking about Black Friday, look at what are refundable options. If it's a cruise line, I know sometimes there's refundable deposits and non-refundable deposits. Let them know what their options are. If they book a refundable, they have the possibility that the price could come down. They also have the security of knowing it can't go up. So it gives them that little bit of freedom and flexibility. Now, I would put some pretty specific timelines into that and let them know that during Black Friday, you're going to go ahead and secure for them the best deal. And actually, I wouldn't use that word. I would secure for you the best value. So in the event that there is a better offer during Black Friday, if it is all right with you, I will go ahead and adjust your booking to capture that. But in the event that there isn't a better offer in place, then I want to make sure that we are securing for you today what is best for you. The same thing with the election. Do a refundable deposit. Now, your fee is non-refundable. Make sure you have a non-refundable fee in place. But get things in place. At the very least, get it on hold. If you have the ability to do a deposit, there are certain things that you can do where you can put a name on it and hold it for 72 hours or 48 hours or something. Make sure leading up to these things, at the very least, that you're doing that. It allows them to be able to have that ability to have things in place. Because here's something interesting that happens after an election. There's a decision. Now, I don't want to get into American politics. We don't know when the decision is coming this year, but at least the election portion of it is over. The people have done their part. Now it's up to the other powers that be. Once that bit of certainty comes into play, now all those people that were waiting are ready to book. What happens when there is a sudden demand on the supply? Prices go up. You want to make sure that your clients are aware, if you hold off completely, just know that there's going to be other people that are as well. And we're going to see a spike in prices, especially with such a busy travel time or travel booking time right after. Where I come from, November was a huge booking season for us. Now, because I worked the Black Friday situation in the fact that I reached out to my clients proactively. My front half of November was by far busier than what the back half of my November was. Because when you're getting into a position where you're having those conversations ahead of time, you're talking with them and saying, what can we do? Or what are you wanting me to look for you during Black Friday? What do you want me to keep an eye out for you? You're able to have those conversations so that you're able to be in a position to already get it booked ahead of time, because it's getting them to commit, getting them to say yes. You can always find them a better opportunity should one arise as a part of a promotion. But you can't go back into the past 3 weeks and say, I know that you wanted to wait for Black Friday, but that deal I had 3 weeks ago, that was so much better. Let's just get in the DeLorean and go back, back to the future, go back to the history and get you that deal. It's not an option. So you want to always be working with what is going on today while simultaneously looking forward to what could happen. Black Friday, especially if you are a newer advisor, is more clickbait than it is reality unless you are dealing in bottom category, mass market, everything. Is there a possibility there could be some better promos come out? Very possibly. Is that a time that if you have a cruise booked for a client that you might want to recommend to them that's when they want to book their drink package if they haven't already? Absolutely. But as an overall, if they're looking for suites, if they're looking for specific locations, if they are looking for specific dates, that's the other thing, is the more specific that they are in what they need, they can only be gone this date to this date. There is no wiggle room. There is no this. There is no that. Get them booked today. When you have a client that's like, we can go anywhere between this date and 3 months from then, we are completely flexible. And we don't care what kind of category we get. We don't care where the location is. We don't care. You might have a Black Friday client there. I'm also going to say you might have a nightmare client, either or. But if you have clients that are looking for specific categories, that are looking for specific dates, particularly if it's a blackout date, get them booked. If they are hesitant because of the election, have the conversations. What needs to happen for them to be more confident? What are they watching for? What do they think is going to, and I get it. We don't want to have those conversations with our clients to see where we're headed into the swamps of elections and this, that, the other. But at the same time, too, we also need to know what's going to make them feel better. I am completely understanding that you want to wait until after the election. Would you mind sharing with me, is it that if a certain person gets in, or is it just simply you want to wait until it's done because you think the pricing is going to come down? Find out what that why is, because the pricing after probably isn't going to come down because there's probably going to be more people booking. But I will also say this is one of those variables, because this election is unlike any other that I've seen in my history. I don't know for sure what's going to happen after. I can only tell you based on what my experience has been over nearly 20 years of typical elections, if that makes sense. So have the conversations, get out in front of the noise. I will also say, just as a side note, because of the election and then into Black Friday, then into holiday shopping, everything else, now is the most expensive time of year to be running ads on Meta, particularly for Americans. So it's not necessarily the greatest time just to run a blanketed ad. I am working to get a Facebook ads expert that I've been working with onto the podcast, but that probably won't happen until the new year. But I just want to say it is one of those times that you've got to have a look around at what is happening and make the adjustments to your business as a whole. It's not one of those vibes in the room conversations, but actual what's happening. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Don't wait for Black Friday. Get out in front of it. Have those conversations with your clients. The election is almost here. It is hopefully going to be in our rearview mirror very soon, one way or the other. We don't get I was going to say we don't get to control the outcome, but as Americans, yes, you do. As Canadians, we would love to be able to participate in this one, but that's not an option. So I can't control the outcome. If you are American, you can get out, go vote. That is your right. That is your responsibility as a citizen of your country. If you are in a democratic country, that is your right. It is your responsibility and it is your honor to be able to vote in order to keep your elections in the voice of the people. Okay. That is as far into elections as we are going. Until next week, happy selling.